Before we start this video, large thank you to Shadow for their support on Patreon. I hope you enjoy the video. And as always, a massive thank you to Halo Burner and Ryan Bellin for their continued and massive support this month on Patreon. I hope you enjoy the video, gentlemen. Hello guys, okay, I want to explain a few things before we start this one, because ladders, at least in the way that Elden Ring and Dark Souls does them, kind of has a lot of moving parts. And I also want to preface that throughout most of this series, when I show you guys something, I've had the time to thoroughly test it in my own project, Nephalite. Oftentimes it goes through multiple revisions and then it gets to the series. So what I'm trying to say is most of the functions and systems that get to you guys ends up being refined a few times before it actually gets to you, except for the level loading system. That was also the same case as ladders. So the ladder system I'm about to show you is something I gave time to in Nephalite, but I think, or rather I know in some ways it can be improved. It's just that it has not been a focal point of mine, but since it's been requested so many times, I will show you my system. Okay, let's start with what you want to accomplish with the ladder, because I want to talk about this first, because this can be done a few different ways. But basically we want to play an animation where the character is going up the ladder, and then we want to make sure, if possible, that we align our feet and hands to each position on the ladder, the rungs. Now, there is multiple ways you could do this. One is you could use IK, and every time you play a portion of the animation where you raise your hand or foot, you basically blend from one IK point to another. This would involve you keeping track of every IK position on the ladder, and every time you play a new portion of the animation where your foot or hand is raised, you blend from that point to the next point. I'm relatively sure this is probably how Elden Ring and Dark Souls do it, but this requires an entire IK system to be set up ahead of time, and although I do have that in Nephalite, I actually don't use this. What I've done instead is I make a ladder, and every ladder in my game, I make sure the rungs are a consistent size apart. So the ladder style is insignificant. What matters is that every time you make a ladder, you keep the space between the rungs consistent. Then you pass it off to an animator, or you animate it yourself, and you make sure you use this ladder as a reference, and then what you have is you have your animator perfectly placing the distance where your feet or hands will go to the rungs. This means that you have to start at the same point in relative to a rung every single time if you choose not to go the IK route. Though it is simpler because you don't need to set up any IK, and as long as you keep it consistent, it's fine. So since this is the only system I actually have fleshed out in Nephalite, I'm going to show you this one. Okay, so here I am in my project. You can see here I have a character, and if you look over here in the animation window, I have all these animations, and I'll just make it a bit bigger so you can see it, for my ladder. Now this looks a bit insane. Whoops, it's not the right layer. Let's go to this layer. This looks a bit insane because you're like, what is going on here? But it's actually because each individual animation is like, each portion of the climb is its own animation. So let me show you. We have the enter and exit. And then we have the, if I go up one, see how I put just my left hand up, then my right hand up, then my left hand up, then my right hand up. I'm doing this so I literally go up a perfect segment with each animation every single time, because if I were to blend the animation or stop it part way, you would have your character end with their foot or hand in the wrong position. And I haven't set up the slider perfectly. As you can see, my foot's not exactly aligned, but it's good enough. But I've also made it so my hands here aren't actually using the rungs. We're using the side of the ladder, and that makes it so it still looks a bit nicer, in my opinion, if your hands miss the rung. So you can see here I have sliding capability. I can jump off the ladder, I can climb up and climb down, and everything is working. And if I were to get hit on this ladder, I'd actually fall off. So I can show you guys how to set all that up as well. But basically what you need is a set of animations for your ladder, and if you want to do it like me, you want to chop them up into portions. And to express my gratitude to my patrons, I will leave my ladder animations in the description if you want to use these. I'll put a download link for my Patreon below. Okay, one last note before we start. I am using root motion to move the character, so alternatively too, you could of course disable that and you could move the character the same way we move it with locomotion, i.e. just using code to do so, but I'm actually using the motion of these animations specifically to move my character because I feel like for actions that just feels more natural. Okay guys, so this is likely going to be like 3 videos, so I'm going to try to cram as much as I can in this video. So I just have a ladder here, and this is from a Cinti pack. And I also have this little cap that my friend made for me here, so I can kind of exit by putting my hands on it. So basically just get any ladder, and if you don't have a ladder, just make one out of cubes for now, it's fine. You don't need an actual ladder for now just to get the functionality working, but I'm just going to use this. I'm sure you can find a free ladder model online also. So I'm going to go into my ladder prefab that I've just made, which again is just my ladder model currently, and I'm going to add a network object component to its parent. The reason why I'm doing this is because it's going to have 2 interactables on it. One for the top entrance and one for the bottom. So I'm going to make 2 game objects here, and I'm going to call it ladder entrance top and ladder entrance bottom. And again, if you're watching this and you see ways to optimize the system or you see ways to improve it, please leave a comment below and I will gladly make alterations to this, because this is something I haven't given a whole lot of attention to in Nephalite just yet. But it works, so I'm going to showcase what I have because it's been asked for a bunch of times. So I'm going to start by erasing the start and update functionality, dropping my namespace as is per tradition. I will make this derived from the interactable class, and we have our network object on the parent object, so this is fine. We don't need to put it on the children objects as well. So we'll start with the ladder position. We're going to start with a simple bool. Is this the top of the ladder? If it is true, then you know this is the top. If not, then it must be the bottom. And then we're going to say header start position, and this is going to be serializable field. And we're going to say transform, and we're going to say start position, just like that. So I'm actually just grabbing this like almost verbatim from Neph, so I might change some things as I see fit while I'm doing this. So you might see me putting something in here and erasing it. So we're going to say top exit start position right idle, and then top exit start position left idle. So what does this mean? Well, depending on if your left or right hand is higher or lower, you're going to have a different start position when you get in the ladder. So we're going to basically factor in two of those. So because of that, we're going to need to keep track of basically two sets of positions when we're exiting or entering. And if you have hand IK, you don't need to worry about this, but hand IK comes with a whole other bag of worms. You have to do a lot more work setting up all the rungs and positions and blending them. So either way, ladders is going to be quite a bit. Next, we'll have a header for exiting top. We'll have max height transform. What is this? This is the max height you're allowed when exiting a ladder. It will just gently smooth your player back to this height if you go above it for some reason. It just makes it look a bit more polished. And then we're going to have private vector 3 reference velocity. We're going to use that to smooth between our current height and the max height. And then we're going to set up our coroutines. We have enter ladder coroutine. We have exit ladder coroutine. And then we're going to have right below that, I'm just going to make a private player manager. We can say player climbing ladder. And this is going to be null. Okay, so let's begin by calling our interact override. This is pretty simple. So we go and interact with this. First, let's go to our player, actually go to our character network manager in case you want to give this function to AI as well. I'm going to paste one of the bools here. I'm going to say is climbing ladder. So when we go to interact, the first thing we want to check is make sure we're not already climbing a ladder. And if we're already climbing a ladder and we try to interact with this, which shouldn't be possible because it should be disabled, but just in case, we're just going to simply return. So if the player is already climbing a ladder, and you try to climb again, do nothing. Okay. So if you're not climbing a ladder, the next check is to say if the enter ladder coroutine is not currently null, to stop it. It shouldn't be happening right now, but just in case, if it is, stop it, and then we're going to start it, and we're going to pass our player, the player that's interacting. And now that I'm reading this, I might not need the player climbing ladder variable, but we'll see. I'm just going to adjust this as I'm going. Like I said, this is a rough copy. We're just kind of copying here, and I'm going to make any adjustments or modifications as I see fit as I'm putting this in. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to say using system.collections up here so we can use our enumerator or our coroutine. And then I am going to say private IE enumerator, and we're going to say wait, then enter ladder, just like so. And we'll pass the player. So this is going to be a little weird because I've noticed with my tinkering with Unity that basically if you don't disable all forms of movement via the character controller, then trying to force your player into a position to start the ladder will have them oftentimes just go slightly out of the range of that position, which is really annoying, and it misaligns your player. So what I found to be very effective is, well, let's start by removing this from the interaction list at first, but literally disabling every way your player can move via animation. So disable can move, so you can't move with your regular inputs. And then you disable your can rotate, so you can't rotate with your regular inputs. That's step one. But then we want to also, I'm just going to quickly make a function for enable and disable can move because we have it for can rotate, and it feels weird to reference one by a function and one by the actual raw bool. So I'm just going to set up all these flags. Plus you can do different things here within these functions if you need to. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to come back here, and then I am going to also do the same thing for can roll. But yeah, if you have your character controller left on, basically it will just sometimes subtly move you out of the place that you want to force move the player to, for seemingly no reason that I can come to. I'm sure there's a reason, but I can't discern what it is. So we're going to basically remedy that by disabling the character controller and disabling any ability to move, rotate, roll, whatever. And then we're going to force move the player to a position because we want the player to obviously start on this position where they climb the ladder, the same position every time, so your feet and hands stay aligned. We're going to say is performing actions equal to true, and then we're going to disable our character controller. So this does disable any movement via the character controller or animation root motion. And then we're going to get the rotation direction of the ladder and make sure our player faces it before they begin climbing. So we can get that by saying start position.transform.forward when we set it up. And then we can say player.transform.position is equal to start position.transform.position. And then we can say player.transform.rotation is equal to, and then we're going to say quaternion look rotation direction. Now your Y, like the ladder should never be rotated on its side, but just in case it is, it shouldn't be because then this won't work. You say rotation direction.y is equal to 0, so your player doesn't rotate on the direction of up or down. But you should always have your ladder straight up with this system. Then we're going to say player network manager. And we're going to say hide weapons server RPC, so if you're holding anything, it hides it. And we're going to say, just a comment here, makes the player face the ladder before climbing, and it hides their weapons. Okay, so if this is the top of the ladder, we want to do something. Otherwise, we're going to just make it a little bit different. And I will touch more on that as the logic develops, because I don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of information, because it's easier to see it all when everything's put together and I can just kind of take it piece by piece. So we want to play a target action animation, climb down ladder, enter O1. And if it's not the top of the ladder, we know it's the bottom of the ladder, so we play climb up ladder, enter O1. So basically pretty simple, get which part of the ladder this is, and then play the proper enter animation, climb up enter or climb down enter. Next, let's go over to the player animator manager. I just want to show you something here. So on animator move, right now we're applying root motion. That's all well and good. But what we want to do, if our character controller is not enabled, we're going to say player.characterController. If it is not enabled, open up some curly brackets here and simply say player.animator, and we're going to call apply built-in root motion, and we're going to simply return. Because we can't use the character controller.move because it's disabled. So what this does is basically just moves the player model like wholly with the character animation. It factors in nothing else. So if our character controller is disabled, we move our model with the animation's movement. And if you want to, you can just make a special flag for this instead of checking if the character is disabled, but I use this in a few hyper-specific actions in F2, like climbing out of the well, when I don't want any other factor to interfere with it, and when I want it to be like animation perfect. So now down here, I'm going to say while the player is not climbing a ladder, we're going to say yield return null, because we know we haven't entered the ladder yet. We're going to sync all this up via animations. And then we're going to say if the player is not exiting a ladder, and we're going to say this is not the top of the ladder, what we want to do is sync the player to the center of the ladder. So think of it like horizontally, right? I want to make sure the player is dead in the center of the ladder. So let's make a new flag on character locomotion manner. I'm going to call this manager, not manner, is exiting ladder, just so it stops giving me an error there. And I'm going to say vector3 new position is equal to vector3, and then we're going to pass, and I need to make the center position first. So let's make a new variable here we'll make a transform. I'm just going to say serialized field, transform, and what can I call this so it's very apparent and obvious? We'll call it ladder horizontal position. So again, this is, we're just going to think of the ladder like on an X, Z, Y axis. Just pretend you're in the dead center of it, not factoring in the height. We want to maintain the player's height. So we're going to do that by saying ladder center position.transform.position.x. Then we're going to take the player's transform position.y, and then we'll take the ladder center transform position.z. We want to make sure that the player is always at this transform. So we're keeping the player's height while always also keeping this the center of the ladder. Why are we doing this only in the bottom of the ladder? Well, when you exit the ladder, you're actually going to get up and kind of like back up a bit. So we need to keep the player's forward motion there. But again, don't worry about that for now. I'll get to that when we actually get to the portion of exiting the ladder at the top. But for now, all you need to worry about is basically this is going to keep our player centered on the ladder while they're climbing. So let's make a smooth time variable because I don't like using magic numbers, especially in tutorials. It sets a bad precedent. I'm going to say 0.2f, and this is just going to be the time it takes to blend between these two positions. And I'll pass smooth time. We'll do the times.delta time. So the player.transform.position is equal to vector3.smoothDamp. We're passing our current transform.position, then our new position we just made, passing a reference velocity, and we're doing it from smooth time by time.delta time. I know I'm talking and going fast, guys, but I'm trying to cram so much into the 24 minutes that we got here, so please bear with me. Play it at 0.5 times speed if you got to. Then we're going to say while player.player network manager is climbing ladder dot value, just again make sure this is enabled because now we're going to use the root motion of our animations, but we're also going to use our character controller. we're going to say if the player dot locomotion manager dot cannot exit the top of the ladder. This is a new flag we have to make. And I know this is probably extremely overwhelming if you don't know what's up right now. Don't worry about it. I promise it will make sense when we have all the pieces on the board, so to speak. So for now, just bear with me. So if we cannot exit at the top of the ladder, then what we want to do is say player.player locomotion manager can move is equal to true. So basically, when you don't get to a position where the animation takes over to play an exit animation, then you can keep moving. You can decide to go up or down. But as soon as you get to a place where the ladder is going to make you play an exit animation, then your movement is again disabled while it plays the exit animation. So we're going to say player.transform.position.y if the player.transform.position.y is equal to or greater than the top exit start position left idle position.y and your vertical input is greater than 0. So basically, if you're at a height at which you can exit and you're still pressing up on the joystick, so you're trying to move up even more, it means you want to exit. So if that is the case, then disable your movement. And do the same thing here for the right hand idle position. And depending on which hand is higher when we get here, we're going to play an exit animation corresponding to that hand. So again, it's pretty simple. If you're at a height where you can exit and you're still trying to go up, then disable your movement because we're going to play an animation where you actually play the exit. Now I am going to copy this position right here. We're going to say if the player.locomotion manager is exiting ladder, or is not exiting ladder, sorry, we're going to basically take their position and do the same thing as center them. But as soon as they begin exiting ladder, we're going to stop doing that. So we're going to say player transform.rotation is equal to quaternion.look rotation. And then we're going to pass our rotation direction. And just seeing this right now, I can definitely clean this up a bit towards the end, but I'll wait until we got all the logic there. So I'm going to say yield return null, and that's it for wait, and then enter ladder. Now let's do check for exit. So I'm going to say private void check for exit. And this is going to be happening while you're climbing the ladder. Basically, you're going to check for this every frame, and if you get to a point which you're eligible for an exit, this is going to be like at your height, then we're going to stop movement as we've done in the wait and enter ladder thing, and then we're going to make the player play an exit animation. Depending on which hand and foot is higher, we'll play the proper animation. So let's make this require a player. I don't know why I just wrote is top of ladder because we have that right here at the top, and it is my notes though. I'm going to erase that though because I think that was just some prototyping gunk. So we're going to say if the player.player network manager is not climbing the ladder, return. We cannot exit if we're not climbing a ladder, so simply return. If the player is already exiting a ladder, also return. We don't want to play and exit twice. And then we have if this is top of the ladder, and then otherwise we have it is the bottom of the ladder. So, okay, so what are we going to do here? Well, the top and the exit, the top exit and the bottom exit are going to be a little bit different because you can slide down the bottom, for example. You can't slide down the top. So we're going to start off at the top and say, if your vertical input is less than or equal 0, return. We know if you're not pressing up on the joystick, you don't actually want to exit. So let's make this can exit top of ladder, hide an inspector. But also let's copy another one. And we're going to say can exit ladder with right hand. And then we need can exit ladder with left hand. Because we need to know which animation specifically to play. Are we raising our right or our left hand? And I'm just going to save that real quick, and I'll go back to the ladder interactable. So if this is the top of the ladder, and you have your vertical input greater than 0, if the player can exit the ladder with the right hand, and their transform.position.y, so their height is basically less than the height needed, we're going to return. And then do the same thing with their left hand. If they can exit with the left hand, but they don't match the height to exit with the left hand, then we're going to return. And you might have guessed that this function is going to be ran over and over again every frame when you're looking for an exit, and this is true. So if the player can exit the ladder with their respective hand but is not yet at the height to exit, just simply return and wait. Otherwise, we're going to say player locomotion manager dot disable can move. And then we're going to, we also need to check for one more thing. We're going to say if the player dot player locomotion manager, we're going to say cannot exit the top of the ladder, return. And then I'll move this disable can't move down below that in a second. We're going to say player.locomotion manager is exiting ladder is equal to true. And then we're going to say player dot, let's just move this can't move down here real quick. Okay, looks good. And then right below that, we're going to say player dot player locomotion manager disable can rotate. And then we're going to say player dot is performing action is equal to true. And then we're going to say player dot character controller dot enabled is equal to false. Actually, I don't think we need that there because I think it's still disabled previously. Let me check my notes real quick. Limit exit height. So this is where we're going to run a coroutine where we're making sure you don't go past a certain height while playing the exit animation. So when you exit, your feet line up with the ground. And then we're going to force player to a minimum height as well so that we know that you're actually going to the proper height needed to exit the ladder and not to bump and fall backwards. But we're going to do that in a future video. It's just going to be basically a very simple synchronization with a position. And then we're going to say if player locomotion manager can exit with right hand or can exit with left hand, we play the proper animation. And that's basically the bulk of it here for how we're going to enter and exit the ladders. So we're going to say right here player dot player animation manager dot play target action animation, and we're going to play our exit animation. Mine's going to be called climb underscore up underscore ladder underscore exit underscore R underscore 01. And we're going to say true. And again, I'll put the animations in the description of the next video, most likely not this one because I don't think we're going to get to the animations this video. It's going to be quite long, but we'll see. Now, otherwise, let's actually not do an else statement. I'm just going to say return right here. After I say vector3, that's not how you spell vector. Oh my goodness, I can't type. Vector3 rotation direction is equal to, and we're going to say start position dot transform dot forward. Then we're going to say player dot. We're going to say character controller is, whoop, that doesn't need to be enabled there. It's my bad. I'm going to erase that in a moment. Wrong line. Player dot transform dot rotation is equal to quaternion dot look rotation. We pass the rotation direction. Okay. And don't enable the character controller there. There we go. That can be re-enabled after we exit. So what we're going to do here now is say comment exit for top, and then we're going to say bottom down here, and I'm just going to make a return statement right after the exit for top check. Okay, so the bottom is a little bit different, but very similar. We need to also check if we're sliding, because we're going to cover sliding as well. That's when you hold the sprint button and your character slides on the ladder with their hands. So we're going to make a network flag for a sliding down ladder right below his climbing ladder, and we're going to check and see if the player input manager dot vertical input, if it's less than 0, or if the player is actively sliding, then we know we can exit. If not, then we're not going to exit. So what do we do if we're just going to disable can move and can rotate, and we're going to say is exiting ladders equal to true, so that's all the same. And you can say if player dot player network manager is sliding down dot value. What you want to do is just say player dot player animator manager dot play target action animation ladder empty. And this doesn't make sense right now because our animations are not set up, but this is basically going to stop the ladder animations. It's just going to kick the player off the ladder. Now, you can play a jump off as well there too, and maybe I'll set up both. You can pick which one you like better. It basically just like kicks off the ladder when you get to the bottom, which is faster than actually playing the exit animation. You can do that while sliding as well, or you can even do that just by exiting regularly. So if the player can exit the ladder with the right hand, we're going to play the climb down ladder underscore, and we're going to say exit underscore right, or R as in right. We're going to say 01. And then otherwise, obviously, it's going to be the left hand, so we do the same thing, but change the R to an L. Okay, let's save that. And that's pretty good. So that is basically going to be the majority of the functionality for the scripts. We're going to continue in the next video because we still have a few more functions. We have to basically sync the height when the player is exiting the ladder. And then we're going to get into setting up our animation states. And then we'll get the player in the world and make sure that climbing works properly. Okay guys, so the next one we're going to get together and we're going to make our animation states, and we're going to finish the synchronization logic, and then we'll try it out, and hopefully by next video, honestly, we can have it working, and we can do sliding and jumping off as well. It might run us into 3 with sliding and jumping off, hard to say for sure, but I'll know in the next one. Thank you all very much for being here again. I hope you learned something. Hope you have a very lovely weekend. Thank you to my patrons for keeping the series going and well alive, and thank you to all the people who share this series via word of mouth and who take the time to leave a like and comment on the video. I have a demo out on Steam. You should totally try it if you have not. That's all from me for today, though. I will see you guys next week.